Thank you, Matt. Okay, as you know, we always start sort of with the national issues, and we're probably going to be spending more time on state issues than national right now, but I did want to start with some good news. So, first of all, as you all know, the 8th Amendment of the Constitution reads, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. So this Supreme Court ruling has all to do with the 8th Amendment. And it came about in a case where approximately $10,000 worth of drugs was seized. But along with the persons who had the drugs in his possession, a $42,000 Land Rover that he had purchased with his funds left to him from his father's life insurance. And he just felt that was an excessive taking for his first crime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Now, I think we've all heard of these disproportionate seizures for a darn long time. You know, they find an ounce of marijuana in a car and take the house, you know, that kind of stuff. It's crazy. So homes have been taken, personal belongings, guns, and so now seizures will need to fit the crime and not just automatically be taken. So that was a good ruling, I think. And then the 9th U.S. Court of Appeals has a judge confirmed, which is pretty cool. His name is Eric Miller. He served as the law clerk to a Judge Lawrence Silberman of the United States Court of Appeals. And later he worked for Justice Clarence Thomas. He's argued more than 60 appeals, including 16 before the Supreme Court. He is the first appeals court nominee to be confirmed without the blue slip consent of either of the 2 home state senators. So you can imagine we've got Murray and Cantwell not approving of him, and this is the first time that they've basically broken that rule and gone ahead and appointed somebody, even though the stupid senators didn't want to approve of him, even though he has a better resume than most everybody. So, yay! Now, if we can get a few more, that'll be good. And I read something, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, that later this month, McConnell is going to go to the nuclear option and stop requiring the 60 votes and start pounding these appointments through. So, yeah, it is about time. So that'll be good. Okay, of course, North Korea. We all know that they say they walked away. Trump put it, you know, no deal is better than a bad deal, that kind of thing. And, you know, it's really hard to say what actually happened. I think they were trying to put a pretty good face on it. It is a little disconcerting of the stuff the news is bringing up as far as satellite images and that kind of thing, but I have also been reading other things, and I think that we can you know, just maybe look at that as just interference that's coming along, and hopefully it isn't just totally going to disintegrate into nothing. We'll just have to see. So that's a wait and see. And then we go to the China trade deal, and we know that the North Korea and China are pretty well connected, so that one's going to be interesting. It's another wait and see situation. Some of the things that I really find amusing is how the press likes to say that China is the only bad actor. You know, that they hack, that they steal, that they spy, they do all of this. And we all sit there, and don't you think we do the same thing? Of course we do. And so it's what, and then we expect China to apologize and say, yes, they've been stealing technology, et cetera, and they aren't going to do it anymore. They're going to admit that. So we need to get over some of that stuff and just get on with the trade deal. You know, so we'll just have to see what happens with China. I'm glad Trump's negotiating with them, and not some like somebody like Bush, but we'll just have to see. So now we're going to go into immigration, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with John McNaughton. He is an artist out of Provo, Utah, and he's done some incredible paintings, political paintings. And this one depicts the national emergency that we're facing. Trump is contemplating the border situation while he's looking down at a doll that's been discarded by a child that's been, drugged along that dangerous trip. Shows 11 prominent Democrats and progressive politicians standing on a tattered American flag while holding flags of Mexico, China, the European Union, Iran, the United Nations, Palestine, etc. I mean, I think that's pretty darn, when you look at that and you see them standing on our flag and holding up everybody else's, I think it's a perfect depiction of what we're looking at. And what he said about this was, "I'm sick of how they trample our flag and do not seek America's interests first." He called them traitors to this country, in most cases more loyal to whichever country, lobbyist, corporation, or special interest group that will keep them in office and line their bank accounts. So that's his latest painting, and I just think it really depicts the situation that we're looking at pretty darn well. So when we look at this border crisis that we have, you need to really compare what we were looking at in 2014 as to what we're looking at now. So in 2014, the entire fiscal year, we had 60,000 illegal border crossings. And Obama declared it a crisis and requested an additional $3.7 billion to help handle that. So you can see there's been a tremendous increase in the illegal border crossings. And, what does the left-leaning media call all of this problem? A manufactured crisis. That is what is being shoved down the Americans' throats when they listen to the normal ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC news, etc., is it's a manufactured crisis. And this is getting pretty darn serious when you look at a 90% increase of 60, in February alone. That's pretty darn sad. So what truly is happening is you have these caravans coming up from Central America, and they all know the loopholes in the law, and they're being coached on the loopholes in our law. And they all are being told that there will be another round of amnesty coming in this country very, very soon, and they need to get here quickly, and so they're paying their money to the cartels to bring them up here. So they're risking a lot to get here. Sometimes these families even send their children by themselves with the understanding that the cartel will use them with other people. They're going to provide a child with another couple or another person to have that person be able to say, they're here seeking asylum and they have a child with them. Mothers are providing birth control to their young daughters because they know of the sexual abuse that goes on with that safe passage that they're paying for. And the entire situation is so opposite of what our values and what we believe are. They're totally deplorable, and yet we aren't standing up and raising Cain about it, other than the Trump people who, of course, are totally deplorable and need to be spat on and beat up. So I don't know. It's estimated that these cartels are making over $1 billion a year arranging for these caravans. I mean, it's just disgusting. And so how it works is they're going to get a caravan coming up of 70, 100 people. They're going to claim asylum. They're going to have children with them. And it takes all of the border resources to go to that area where they are. They usually go to a checkpoint, which then leaves the other part of the border unprotected, and that's where the people with the drugs and things can come through without being apprehended. The other thing, we went into Flores a couple months ago, but what the Flores law calls for is that if you come to the United States as a family unit with a child and claim asylum, you can be kept no longer than 20 days. So we've got to house them for 20 days. Well, we're out of room, we don't have room. And so it's basically, we register them in, we give them a date when they're supposed to come back and appear at court, 3, 4, 5 years ago, down the road, and release them into the United States. So these people that are coming in the caravans, knowing what to say and do, are all being released into the United States. Now, the Democrats, as you know, are in charge of the House, and they put their bills forward according to importance. So their House Bill number 1 is called For the People Act. Sort of makes you sick. So what it wants is they want to expand early voting, they want to enact redistricting changes, they want to have an automatic and same-day registration of voters. So here in Washington State, we already have automatic registration. If you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, they're going to ask you if you're registered, and if you say no, they'll do it for you, kind of thing. It's just an automatic thing. And we also have same-day voting, as well as online registration. So you can see this is all stuff that the Democrats want to have. So do you think our system is wonderful and secure and safe and all that kind of stuff? Obviously not. So the bill would create a new national automatic voter registration that requires voters to opt out rather than to opt in, and it will ensure that more people are signed up to vote. This practice was used in Texas. Texas registered 95,000 non-citizens, and in their audit they ended up finding 58,000 of those people actually voted in recent elections. Now that's a felony. It's supposed to really be deportation. And yet the cases that they've been prosecuting, they had some back east, they're giving them a little fine and a little community service and a slap on the hand. So unless we can make an example and let the illegals know that if they vote, they're out of here, they're going to keep on voting. So it's not a good thing. This law would also make colleges and universities voter registration agencies along with the Department of Motor Vehicles. So can you imagine the people they're targeting using colleges and universities? It would make Election Day a holiday for federal workers and encourage private sector to do the same, make that. It would prohibit purging voter rolls. Yeah, prohibit purging voter rolls. And, so here in the state of Washington, if a person has been totally inactive for a certain number of years, they're purged out of the system. They need to re-register, et cetera, et cetera. This would prohibit purging voter rolls. It would stop the use of non-forwardable mail. Now here in Washington, we do forward, which I think is ridiculous, but we do forward. But many states don't, because they figure that's a great way to find out if the voter still lives where they said they do. But that it has stopped that use. And, there's more. So when you really look at it, you can see how these practices are already in place in Washington State. And, we're told our voter rolls are clean and accurate. And I think you've really got to question that, considering how much they're pushing for. Under campaign finance, what they're wanting here is to encourage small donations and require more disclosure for PACs and work to eliminate what they call dark money. Small donations are defined as $200 or less. Now, a big objection to this whole idea was that why should taxpayers in Washington State be matching a 6-to-1 match for small donations for a candidate in California? And so, and that seemed, pretty logical, I thought anyway. So they've changed it, and what they now propose is that it be financed by a 2 3/4% fee on criminal and civil fines, fees and penalties or settlements with banks and corporations, that kind of thing. So when you hear that an entity like Wells Fargo was fined blah, 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 a number of millions or billions of dollars for doing something wrong, they want to take 2 3/4% of that fine to apply it to this 6-to-1 match that they're thinking. They really feel that this will encourage more small donor contributions. This bill obviously was passed on strict party lines, and McConnell says he will not bring it up to the Senate, but I thought you'd like to really see what the Dems are up to. That is their very first piece of legislation that they felt was very, very important. Now here are their other ones. So we talked about H.R. 1 for the People Act. H.R. 2 is infrastructure. And this one possibly could get some bipartisan support, but there isn't anything really known about the details and things that way. In fact, the chairman of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee didn't even know the bill number that had been reserved for it. So they have it up there, but they haven't put much work into it. 3, on prescription drugs, the stated goal will be to lower drug costs, but like infrastructure, there's no details. Voting Rights Advancement Act, they feel that some states have enacted restrictive voting laws, like requiring identification, and want the Justice Department to stop voter suppression tactics before they go into place. So that's what that one's about. 5 is LGBTQ equality. And what they said about that is it's a fully comprehensive civil rights bill that will once and for all prohibit discrimination against the LGBTQ community in all areas of life. And it has earned tremendous support from the caucus. So that'll affect housing, employment, public accommodations, jury service, federal funding, education, all that kind of stuff. DREAM Act, I believe that was introduced today, so we'll go into that a little later on another slide. Paycheck fairness would aim, I love this one, would aim to provide equal pay for men and women who do the same jobs. And as you know, women have always been screaming that they get paid less and the whole thing, so I like the results of, what was it, Google, where the women were getting paid more than the men for the same jobs, but still. Background checks, that's more gun stuff. It's already introduced and was passed 240 to 190, sent to the Senate. 8 Republicans defected, and the Senate indicates they will not take up the measure, creating another 2020 issue for the Democrats to use. Climate, that part isn't the Green New Deal. Pelosi hasn't provided any hints on what this is going to be. An aide said that it's rather than a sweeping solution to the climate crisis, it's going to be a starter measure, so goodness knows. And H.R. 10, she just said it's something special. I have plenty of ideas of what I'm going to do with it, but it's a surprise. So that's what they're thinking of for their top 10 bills. So we go to that number 6, the DREAM Act, and it's now called the Dream and Promise Act. And it's looking to permanently protect and provide a path to citizens for dreamers, as well as TPS, the temporary protected status people, and the deferred enforcement departure holders. So, and it was, like I said, it was scheduled to be dropped today. So it provides a pathway for millions of dreamers, not just the 800,000 that were protected under the Obama one, but to sort of incorporate all of them that are there now. And it also extends temporary protected status to those from Sudan, Nepal, Nicaragua, Haiti, and El Salvador, while providing deferred enforcement departure protections for refugees from Liberia. So this is a little refresher. First of all, you've got these 23 Democrats and Rubio who are pressing the administration to designate Venezuelans for temporary protective status. And the whole idea of that is sort of poor, because you really want those young people staying there and not leave their country and stay home and fight. I mean, having them flee here is just going to help Maduro. So it's not a good thing. So TPS, just reviewing, is a status that's granted to certain immigrants who can't return to their country due to an ongoing armed conflict, a natural disaster, or other what they call extraordinary conditions. The time initially granted is 18 months. So if there was a horrible earthquake or hurricane in Haiti and people were here from Haiti, they could have this temporary protective status for 18 months, assuming that Haiti would be back on its feet in 18 months. And these grants can be renewed anywhere from 6 months to 18 months. Now, what's happened, on average for Salvadorans with TPS, they've lived in the United States for 22 years. Hondurans for 23 years, Haitians for 17 years. And a notable share of these individuals were under the age of 18 when they arrived, between 29 and 32% for each of the three countries. So you can see that these folks are pretty well established in the US, and it doesn't seem reasonable to deport them unless they have violated our laws, and so that's why they're sort of being put into this umbrella for the Dreamers Act too. Trump ended TPS designations for the countries that have in teal there, or whatever color you want to call that. And the those foreign nationals represent 98% of the 318,000 people protected under TPS. And then the Northern District of California issued a preliminary injunction leaving the designations in place. So even though he ended it, it didn't because of the Ninth Circuit Court. And so I really, we've got to understand what this whole amnesty talk means to this country. It's not good. So we're going to watch a very short video here.
I recently watched a group of protesters, most of them young, denouncing President Donald Trump's immigration policies. They were waving Mexican flags and shouting, "Si se puede!" Yes, we can. This is now the rallying cry of the open borders left, but it wasn't always. In fact, I wondered if a single person at the protest knew where it came from. The slogan first became famous 50 years ago, thanks to Cesar Chavez. He was the founder of the United Farm Workers Union. When Chavez said, "Si se puede," he meant something very different. Yes, we can seal the borders. Cesar Chavez hated illegal immigration. He was Hispanic, obviously, and definitely on the left, but he fought to keep illegal Mexican immigrants out of this country. He understood that peasants from Latin America will always work for less than Americans will. That's why employers prefer them. Chavez knew that. As long as we have a poor country bordering California, he once explained, it's going to be very difficult to win strikes. In 1969, Chavez led a march down the center of California to protest the hiring of illegal immigrant produce pickers. Marching alongside him was Democratic Senator Walter Mondale and the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, the longtime aide to Martin Luther King. 10 years later, Chavez dispatched armed union members into the desert to assault Mexican nationals who were trying to sneak across the border. Chavez's men beat immigrants with chains and whips made of barbed wire. Illegal aliens who dared to work as scabs had their houses firebombed and their cars burned. Chavez wasn't embarrassed about any of this. He bragged about it. No matter. Chavez remains a progressive hero. President Obama declared his birthday a commemorative federal holiday. It's an official day off in a half a dozen states. There's a college named after him and dozens of public schools. Cesar Chavez's life is a reminder of how much the left has changed and how quickly. Until recently, most Democrats agreed with Chavez. They opposed unchecked immigration because they knew it hurt American workers, and they were right. One study by a Harvard economist examined the effects of the mass migration of Cuban refugees to this country in 1980, the so-called Mariel boat lift. He found that American workers in Miami with a high school education saw their wages fall by more than 30% after the refugees arrived. If you believe in supply and demand, this is not surprising. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, Democratic Governor Jerry Brown opposed letting Vietnamese refugees into California on the grounds that the state already had enough poor people. As he put it at the time, there's something a little strange about saying, let's bring in 500,000 more people when we can't take care of the 1 million Californians out of work? First-term Senator Joe Biden of Delaware agreed. He introduced federal legislation to curb the arrival of the Vietnamese. 2 decades later, leading Democrats were still wary of mass immigration, especially illegal immigration. As Bill Clinton put it in the 1995 State of the Union address, Americans are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public services they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. No prominent Democrat would say anything like that today without being denounced as a racist. Clinton got a standing ovation. As late as 2006, there were still liberals who cared about the economic effects of immigration, legal or illegal. Immigration reduces the wages of domestic workers who compete with immigrants, explained economist Paul Krugman in the New York Times. We'll need to reduce the inflow of low-skilled immigrants. Mainly that means better controls on illegal immigration. That same year, Senator Hillary Clinton voted for a fence on the Mexican border. So did Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and 23 other Senate Democrats. Not anymore. 20 years after Bill Clinton told Americans they had the right to be upset about illegal immigration, his wife scolded the country for enforcing border controls. So what changed? Not the economics of it. The law of supply and demand remained in effect. It's not a coincidence that as illegal immigration surged, wages for American workers stagnated. What changed is that Democrats stopped caring about those workers, about the middle class, really. Why? Here's the answer in 4 simple facts. 1. According to a recent study from Yale, there are at least 22 million illegal immigrants living in the United States. 2. Democrats plan to give all of them citizenship. Read the Democrats' 2016 party platform. 3. Studies show the overwhelming majority of first-time immigrant voters vote Democrat. 4. The biggest landslide in American presidential history was only 17 million votes. Do the math. The payoff for Democrats? Permanent electoral majority for the foreseeable future. In a word, power. That's the point, no matter what they tell you. American workers be damned. I'm Tucker Carlson.
So unfortunately, that's what we're looking at, and you're going to have your voices heard loud and clear to see if we can stop any of it. The deferred action for the childhood arrivals is going to incorporate a lot more than the 800,000. You've got the TPS and the DEDs, you've got the other people, and I've always felt that I don't mind if these people are given the legal permanent status, but I don't feel anybody that's broken our laws should ever be allowed citizenship. So they can be here, they can enjoy the country, they can work, they can pay taxes, they can buy homes, they can raise their families, you've got all the benefits in the world as a permanent resident other than you don't vote. So they don't need to be citizens. And I think that's something that we really need to have our voices heard on. Another thing that's really going to crop its head up a lot in 2020 is this abortion issues. The Department of Human and Health Services finalized what they called its Protect Life rule. And it bans abortion providers from receiving family planning funds under the federal Title X program. And the rule prohibits the use of Title X money to perform, promote, refer for, or support abortion as a method of family planning. So you can understand that those clinics that perform abortion or make referrals are not going to receive any of that $286 million, and they are upset about it. The statute governing Title X has, and this is something that really surprised me, for most of the program's history stated that none of the funds appropriated under this title shall be used in programs where abortion is a method of family planning. That language effectively has been ignored for many, many administrations. So thank you, President Trump. Now, Planned Parenthood is the largest abortion provider. According to the group's most recent annual report, they performed more than 332,000 abortions last fiscal year. and that's about 1/3 of the overall abortions that are performed in the United States. Now, this issue under the Title X thing and the funds has been heard and ruled on by the Supreme Court before. In Rust versus Sullivan, back when Clinton was president, it was upheld, and the policy, we hope, will be upheld this time around as the challenges happen. And now we have a president that wants to enforce what it's always been. We've just ignored it, which I thought was, you're just going, really? Now, the late-term abortion situation is really heating up. And technically, late-term abortions are defined as taking place during or after the 21st to 24th week of gestation. And that sort of corresponds to fetal viability. And it's supposedly only 1.3 of abortions are performed at or greater than 21 weeks. So this New York law allows for abortions after the 24th week, and the medical conditions are very vague. Virginia's considered one also, and how Virginia's governor explained the practice, and you got to remember he is a pediatrician, is, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered, the infant would be kept comfortable, the infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and family desired, and then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So proponents feel extreme late-stage abortions up until birth in the case of severe but undefined health problems for the mother and child should not be restricted, but should just be a routine part of the woman's right to choose. A new Marist poll says that 75% of Americans say abortion should be limited to only the first 3 months of pregnancy, and only 13% think third trimester abortion should be allowed. So again, this is going to be a hot issue for the 2020 campaign. We're just going to have to see how it plays out. Now we have a new term. We have, I don't know how many new words have been put in the dictionary in my lifetime, but there's been a ton. But just recently we have this new one. It's called intersectionality. And we actually saw this in play last week because bigotry for progressive really no longer depends on what's said, but it depends on the identity of the person saying it, the speaker. Ilhan Omar cannot be guilty of anti-Semitism because she's black, she's Muslim, she's female, and she's an immigrant. So that's 4 things there, right? She was born in Mogadishu. And American Jews tend to be white, wealthy, and privileged, so you know they don't count. So progressives don't normally come out there and say this explicitly, but there is this sort of counting method of your level of what you can get away with. And so her remarks, her anti-Semitic remarks, you know, they just made up excuses for her, and they ignore or they just promote her anyway. It just doesn't matter. And we basically all saw how difficult it was for the Democrats to censure her. In fact, they didn't. They just made a very broad statement. So we have another video now that's going to give you a better understanding of intersectionality. Another PragerU.
You probably think your opinions matter. You probably think you're an individual with unique experiences, thoughts, and ambitions. Well, I hate to break it to you, but according to current leftist orthodoxy, you're wrong. You see, your opinion only matters relative to your identity and where that identity ranks on the hierarchy of intersectionality. If you're now thinking, what the hell are you talking about? You haven't spent much time on a modern college campus. Intersectionality is a form of identity politics in which the value of your opinion depends on how many victim groups you belong to. At the bottom of the totem pole is the person everybody loves to hate, the straight white male. And who's at the top? Well, it's very hard to say because new groups claim victim status all the time. No one can keep track. So, how does this intersectionality thing play out? Something like this. Let's say you're a gay white woman. Your opinion matters, but less than that of a gay black woman. Why? Because while all women are oppressed by the patriarchy, and all gays are oppressed by the heterosexual majority, blacks have a victim status that whites obviously don't. Of course, a gay black woman's victim status is less than that of a black trans woman, who ranks below a black Muslim trans woman, and so on. The more memberships you can claim in oppressed groups, the more aggrieved you are, and the higher you rank. Get it? Good, because it's about to get even more complicated. Intersectionality takes your victim status and uses it as the basis for creating alliances with other victim groups. 30 or 40 years ago, activists encouraged racial solidarity among blacks to combat oppression. But today, that's not enough. Today's activists demand blacks make common cause with other allegedly oppressed people: gays, lesbians, transgenders, Palestinians, Native Americans, whomever. Here's the logic. A black gay and a Hispanic gay may not belong to the same victim group racially, but they do belong to the same victim group on the basis of their sexuality. By focusing on the places where various victim identities intersect, intersectionality creates a united us versus them paradigm, righteous victims rising up together to fight the oppressor, those dreaded straight white men. This explains why at a rally protesting the treatment of Palestinians by Israel, you might see a contingent of lesbian activists. That's intersectionality at work. They're so united by their victim status that it doesn't matter if Islamists throw gays off of buildings or murder female family members who defy their father's wishes. Victim solidarity trumps all other considerations. The term intersectionality was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, a professor of law at Columbia University. She explains that intersectionality was my attempt to make feminism, anti-racist activism, and anti-discrimination law do what I thought they should: highlight the multiple avenues through which racial and gender oppression were experienced. To Crenshaw, America is a terrible place full of victim groups, each with their particular set of grievances. Why shouldn't these victim groups get together and form a political coalition unified by the belief that the majority society has harmed them? That some professor tucked away in an ivory tower would come up with this nonsense is not surprising. What is surprising and disturbing is that so many people actually go along with it. America is the most open, least racist nation on the planet. That Professor Crenshaw is free to spin her nonsensical theories and get paid well for it should offer adequate proof of that. And since when do you have to live someone's experience in order to understand them? You don't have to live as a slave in order to understand that slavery is cruel and wrong. You don't have to live as a woman in order to recognize the evil of rape. Finally, and most important, intersectionality promotes the biggest hoax of all: that we aren't individuals who are to be judged on the basis of how we act, but are merely members of groups to be judged on the basis of our group identity. In other words, you and I, as individuals with our unique experiences, thoughts, and ambitions, count for nothing. Our racial and sexual identity count for everything. It's hard to imagine an idea less likely to produce a free and equal America than that. But what do I know? I'm just a straight white male. I'm Ben Shapiro for Prager University.
So now you all know what that means and what's going on in our country today. Pretty crazy. So the First Amendment, let's talk about the First Amendment for a little bit. We've all heard that conservative students and professors say they face a liberal bias on college campuses. And so Trump announced at the CPAC that he was going to have an executive order that would require universities to support free speech if they wanted to continue receiving federal research dollars. So what that really means is that universities routinely receive funds from federal agencies to perform research for the federal government as subcontractors. Research dollars come with contract obligations, and so a free speech requirement could just be an addendum to those agreements. Trump could decide in his executive order to either dictate how federal agencies will enforce a free speech requirement or delegate the specifics to federal agencies to determine the best way to enforce the rule. So it is probably a step. Hopefully we'll see a little more openness. I think we've seen our own Gonzaga University decline to have speakers speak there until the public really protested it, and then they did allow the speakers to appear, that kind of thing. So it isn't good, and of course we know that we've had a lot of the Antifa problems on college campuses, beating up people that they think are Trump supporters, that kind of thing. So it's probably something And there's a lot of other First Amendment issues that are out there, and I don't know if any of you want to comment on any of them that you see cropping up all the time, but you know, maybe we just need to be more aware of it and understand that we do have the right to free speech, even though the majority doesn't agree with what that speech is. If we stop listening to other people, we've got to have conversation. We need to respect other opinions. We need to listen to people. And I think that's something that's really missing in today's world. So these numbers are on the little long pieces of paper on the table. Those give you your upcoming events and a couple other URLs also. And you know, John asked me today, he says, why do you do those? Because people don't really take them or use them. So if you guys don't want the upcoming events and a place to take notes and things, let me know and I'll stop doing it. But I just figure that you need to have that Olympia hotline because there's sure a lot of issues that you need to be dialing into that number about every day. So do look at those there. What I have there, gun legislation. You can look, there's a URL there that you can see all the firearm-related bills. You can track the progress of bills, gave you another URL there. At the bottom of the form are those two numbers that were just on the screen. And then John did a 6-page document on phone numbers of legislators and things that way. And if you look it up through that URL, all those links are hot for you, so you don't have to be copying things out and things. And you know, guys, that's the only thing we can do is start being active, start having our voices heard. So we're going to go into statewide issues. Olympia. You know, we've had 3 bills passed so far. There's 1,046 measures that are still alive for this session, and legislation has to be passed out of the House of Origin by tomorrow, so a lot was happening today and tomorrow. 300 measures have passed at least one chamber, 156 have passed in the House and 153 in the Senate, and 3 bills have cleared both houses. So the first one that they passed immediately was modifying I-940, and that was the one that we had the lawsuit coming up with the De-Escalate Washington initiative. And mostly what they did was they modified the deadly force portion of the initiative, and it also requires the state to reimburse peace officers for reasonable defense costs and things that way. The second was moving the presidential primary from May until March, and that is on the governor's desk. I'm not sure if he signed it yet or not. And the third one, I don't remember. Does anybody know the third one that got passed already? Okay, I couldn't find it, so. Okay, education. So, you know, Inslee has told us many times that to him, climate change is the most important issue facing the world. So I don't think it should be any surprise to anyone here that he has $4 million appropriated to brainwash, I guess I should say educate, our children on climate science and how our environment is actually being destroyed by human beings. So that's money going into our education system to educate our kids. Yes, then we have our sex education bill, and follow it. In the Senate, it was 5395, and it passed. So its companion bill is 1407. You might want to write that down on your pieces of paper there, and follow that one. And this is one that you should be commenting on. It would require public schools to provide evidence-based sexual health education curriculum from a list developed by the State Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction or from other sources that satisfy that organization. And so honestly, you know, there's been a lot of work done by many people on this, but you do need to let your legislators know Now it's in the House, so it's 1407. And guys, it's easy to comment on these bills. You can go, I mean, there's even a comment page on each bill that you can make comments. You can call that phone number. There's many things that you can do, but you need to comment. And then 5313 is just a way that school districts can raise levies. They can choose between a levy lid of 20% of its levy base or $3,500 per pupil. And I think we mentioned this the very first meeting this year, is that many school districts were going to find that the McCleary settlement and decision it was going to short them, and they weren't going to be getting as many funds from taxes as they did previously, and so they were going to be looking for other ways to tax their base, and so that's one of those. Elections, that's one of the bills that passed both chambers. So we're going to be the second Tuesday in March, and that is a week later than what they call Super Tuesday. And they also indicated that electors would be disqualified if they don't vote for the party's approved nominee. That passed the Senate. It's now in the House. I think you remember last year we had a whole ton of people that were delegates that were sent to the Nationals and insisted that they would not be an elector for Donald Trump. They were going to be cruise people and that kind of thing. And so this was basically done to stop that. Obviously, we have same-day and automatic voter registration now in effect, and you can register to vote at age 16. That happens in July of this year. So, and what that means is they'd be added to the voter rolls. And so let's say that you are 17 at the time of the primary, but you'd be 18 at the time of the general. They will allow you to vote in the primary. So a 17-year-old can vote in the primary if they'll be 18 at the general, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a whole lot of changes to elections there.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes. I didn't have time to
You have to give us your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Mark Robinson. I live at... That's right here in Greensboro. Lived in Greensboro all my life. I didn't have time to write a fancy speech. I didn't have time to, I didn't have the resource of an English teacher to sit down and write a speech with at school today and be, brought over here or practice or anything. What I really came down here for is this. I've heard a whole lot of people in here talking tonight about this group and that group, and domestic violence and blacks, these minorities and that minority. What I want to know is, when are you all going to start standing up for the majority? And here's who the majority is. I'm the majority. I'm a law-abiding citizen who's never shot anybody, never committed a serious crime, never committed a felony. I've never done anything like that. But it seems like every time we have one of these shootings, nobody wants to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. You want to put it at my feet. You want to turn around and restrict my right, constitutional right that's spelled out in black and white. You want to restrict my right to buy a firearm and protect myself from some of the very people you're talking about in here tonight. It's ridiculous. I don't think Rod Serling could come up with a better script. It does not make any sense. The law-abiding citizens of this community and many communities around this country, we're the first ones taxed and the last ones considered and the first ones punished when things like this happens, because our rights are the ones that are being taken away. That's the reason why I came down here today. Gun show or no gun show, NRA or no NRA. I'm here to stand up for the law-abiding citizens of this community, because I'm going to tell you that what's going to happen. You can take the guns away from us all you want to. You all write a law, I follow the law, I'll bring my guns down here, I'll turn them in. But here's what's going to happen. The Crips and the Bloods on the other side of town, they're not going to turn their guns in. They're going to hold on to them. And what's going to happen when you have to send the police down there to go take them? The police can barely enforce the law as it is. As what I see, we demonize the police, criminalize and vilify the police, and we make the criminals into victims. And we're talking about restricting guns? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that when the police department's already hamstrung? You're not going to be able to go down here and take these guns from these criminals. So the criminals are going to hold on to their guns. They're still going to have them. They're still going to break in my house, and they're still going to shoot me with them. And guess who's going to be the one that suffers? It's going to be me. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, it is not going to happen without a fight. And when I say fight, I don't mean shots fired. I don't mean fist thrown. I mean I'm going to come down here to this city council and raise hell just like these loonies from the left do until you listen to the majority of the people in this city. And I am the majority. The majority of the people in this city are law-abiding, and they follow the law, and they want their constitutional right to be able to bear arms. They want to be able to go to the gun show and buy a hunting rifle or a sport rifle. There are no military-grade weapons sold at the gun show. An AR-15 is not a military-grade weapon. Anybody that would go into combat with an AR-15 is a fool. It's a semi-automatic .22 rifle. You'd be killed in 15 minutes in combat with that thing. So we need to dispel all these myths, and we need to drop all this division that we got going on here. Because the bottom line is, when that Second Amendment was written, whether the framers liked it or not, they wrote it for everybody. And I am everybody. And the law-abiding citizens of this city are everybody. And we want our rights, and we want to keep our rights. And by God, we're going to keep them, come hell or high water.
So we want more people like that down at City Hall. Right, Mike? Okay, more bills. Transportation, if you can believe this. Their spending plan, $15 billion. So you've got two more bills to be following. 5971 is a carbon fuel tax of 15 cents per gallon of gas, plus heating and other fuels. Did you guys not strike down the carbon tax bill? Yeah, well, here it is. They also want to add 6 cents to the state gas tax, taking it to 70 cents, 0.4 per gallon from the current 49.4, and a special tax on home and business construction. So those are two more bills. Write down on your piece of paper to watch, 5970, 5972. Vaccinations. So again, this one basically removes the philosophical or personal objection exemption for measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. It clarifies that a child may be exempt from mandatory vaccines only if he or she has a parent or sibling with a history of an immune system problem or an adverse reaction to a particular vaccine. And it requires employees and volunteers at child daycare centers to receive the MMR vaccine, provide proof of immunity for the measles, or provide a certification that the vaccine is not medically advisable. So you're going to be seeing that the philosophical exemption against vaccines is going to end, at least for MMRs in the state of Washington. And that's how that one's going. We have wolves, and this was sort of interesting. The Fish and Wildlife Service is proposing a rule that will remove the wolves from the endangered species protection. So I got excited about that. I thought this is a good thing. But Washington State's wolf conservation plan is expected to stay in place since the state lists them as endangered and they ain't gonna remove them. So I don't think you're gonna be seeing any relief for our Washington guys, at least not right away. But it will allow other states have the authority to hold wolf hunting and trapping seasons. This is already happening in Idaho and Montana because those states removed their endangered species status a couple years ago. But I'm not sure what'll happen for Washington, but I know that Joel Kretz is on top of it. Okay, Washington strikes back. And I'm going to have John Christina come up and talk about this. He was the point man in gathering some affidavits. It was an event that was held on March 2nd, organized by the American Patriots 3%, Spokane Concealed Carry, the 63rd and the 65th Lightfoot. And he's going to tell you what this is about, what we accomplished, and we'll just see what happens. I have to stand where I was.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. Is it me, or just things kind of out of control? Yeah,
absolutely out of control.
It's crazy, not only at the national level, but state level and local level. And I'm sure Mike's going to talk about that in a little bit. But got to tell you about this effort here. I heard about Washington Strikes Back about 3 months back, and some friends of mine from Yakima were getting involved in it. And their whole thought was that they took a look at the whole situation and realized that our Attorney General, Sideshow Bob Ferguson, was really a little bit overactive in his pursuit of gun control and probably exceeded his authority as the Attorney General of the state of Washington. And so they came up with this proposal, Washington Strikes Back, basically to see if we couldn't get him to be charged with a felony misdemeanor or misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor. And so there are a number of different RCWs, Revised Code of Washington, those are the laws that we believe he could have broken. And so they were itemized, and the group decided to go statewide with it, broken down by county, and to see if we couldn't find perhaps a sheriff or perhaps a prosecuting attorney, and failing that, perhaps an individual who would take it to court, try to charge him with a felony, or excuse me, a gross misdemeanor. We, like Cecily said, we had a lot of support. The people who really were driving it here in Spokane County were the American Patriot 3%, Spokane Concealed Carry, and the 63rd and 65th Militia. So they did a wonderful job of that. I got involved, working with Liberty State, Spokane, and felt it would be good to support them in their efforts. And so what we did, we set up a day over at sharpshooting a couple of Saturdays ago. And what we did was we provided an opportunity for people to come in and fill out a criminal affidavit against the Attorney General. We had a lot of backup information for them to use. And we actually also had a notary public there, so people get their information notarized and at no cost. So it worked out really, really well. And by the way, we did that with the support of Northwest Grassroots, and it truly was a team effort, so thank you guys. Had a great financial contribution and just had a lot of support all the way around. So it worked out really, really well. We ended up today with 98 affidavits signed and notarized. That was on top of ones that the 3% and the militia had picked up the week before. So there were over 100 affidavits that were submitted to the courthouse for that process. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But Spokane County Courthouse, yes. This is going to be done by county. Yeah, you bet. So anyway, we going forward with this, we're hoping that 100 affidavits are going to be enough. What's happened is that the gentlemen who were running it in Spokane County with the AP 3%, Spokane Concealed Carry, and the militia delivered those to the county sheriff here last week. And the county sheriff turned them over to the county prosecutor. So he's got them right now. I'm sure he's going to do his due diligence, and we'll see what comes out of that. If necessary, if the sheriff and or the prosecutor decide that they don't want to charge, then we'll have to find a good, fine, upstanding citizen to take this through the court system, through district court here in Spokane County. So that'll be our backup plan in case we have to do that. So that is in a nutshell what we've done. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Did Sheriff Knezovich make a statement in regards to
the question was, did Sheriff Knezovich make a statement in support of this? I believe overall he's probably in support of it. He's made some statements to that. He definitely, when he received the petitions or the affidavits, he passed them on and told the prosecutor that if he needed any assistance, he'd be happy to help him with them. So, yeah. So, John.
So this isn't a trap question, but I think I heard Cecily talking earlier today at home about Ferguson being immune to this. Can you speak to that? Do you know what that's about?
A sovereign official So sovereign government officials are exempt from lawsuits, according to why initially the NRA and the other gun one and the 4 young people and the 2 gun owners, one being gun store owners, one being Robin Ball, sued Washington State and Ferguson for I-1639, and that was thrown out on February 20th because he was a sovereign official. Okay. And then I started looking up sovereign officials, and it basically says that officials of the government are exempt from prosecution.
Well, I wonder if Richard Nixon knew that, and some of the other ones.
Yeah, right. I thought it was weird.
You know, I'm not a lawyer. I don't even play one on TV, but I think it's a question I can bring back to some of the folks who are behind this effort here. It's a good question. To me, what we see is that Ferguson, at the very least, violated his oath of office, and that's official misconduct, and there is a law on the books in the state of Washington for that. So the question I have is, if we've got all these laws, and there were about 10 of them that we used for backup, if they're on the books, why wouldn't an elected official be able to be charged with a gross misdemeanor? So,
right.
But we can find that out.
Well, we will.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, sir.
There's an oath to honor the Constitution, right?
He sure does.
So it would have to be something. It's going to have to be a Supreme Court decision because it's sure not going to happen in Washington.
Yeah,
that's a violation. This whole bill is a violation of our Second Amendment rights.
Right, and that was the interesting thing on this bill, on the lawsuit that was thrown out, is that then they figured out what they needed to do to reinstitute it, and it is back in play. I forget how I had to, should have brought it with me, but I can't remember exactly how, but the four young people under 21 years of age, the 2 gun store owners, and the 2 gun associations have reinstituted that suit.
Yeah, so there'll be a lot going on here in the next few months here, but keep your powder dry. I can tell you that if we do have to go to the court system, to the district court, we'll probably be going out and soliciting more affidavits, so you'll have an opportunity, if you haven't already, to fill one out. And by the way, I look around the room, I see a lot of people who were there, and I thank you for being there. Really appreciate it. And again, yes, sir.
John, one other thing, there are 2 county sheriffs in Washington that have come out and said that they would not enforce 1639, but our sheriff would not make that statement. And so we can't expect support from him on 1639.
He's a politician. He's not a sheriff.
He's not even a good politician.
I think he's an excellent politician. Slimy and sneaky.
Who else? Was it somebody else? Was it somebody else? Did you want to say something?
Right. I'll pass it on to John Valle and Randy and those guys. They really have the point on this one here. So, yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I thought I heard that the governor of Inslee, they're bringing a lawsuit against the president. They've got lawsuits coming against the president. So what is that? What is that if a sovereign cannot be sued?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you're right.
Well, right, and you know, I think Ferguson already has something like 16 lawsuits against this administration. He's just spending the money like crazy, suing President Trump.
And I wish he spent his money on helping out the citizens of the state of Washington, but that's another story. Steve.
I would just like for Bob Ferguson to be consistent. He tells the sheriffs of the state they have to enforce 1639, but on the flip side, he allows sanctuary cities, needle injection sites, all these other examples of lawlessness. So, I mean, in my opinion, the guy doesn't have a leg to stand on.
We hope that's so, particularly in a court of law. So. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for your attention. And like I said, if we do have to go to the district court route, we'll definitely be soliciting more affidavits. So, thank you so much, and thanks again to Northwest Grassroots.
Thank you, John. Okay. Now, how many of you are totally appalled at what's going on in Olympia? And how many of you think that we have a chance of fighting back on any of those bills that I brought up? You have a chance. Snowball's chance in hell is what you got. So, the way I look at it is this Liberty State, the 51st state, has a lot more legs right now than it did 6 months ago, because we're starting to really be seeing what we're going to be faced with, and this is going to go on and on and on. We don't have a chance of turning this around. So I want you to all meet Sue Pearson. They're heading up the 51st state movement for Spokane County, and I just thought it'd be a good idea for you guys to meet her, and she can bring you up to date on this. You know, if this doesn't work, maybe the region idea like New York's coming up will work. We've got to do something. And I want you also to know that Sue was the gal that is a notary and provided her services all day long on March 2nd, 6 hours, providing free notary services for all of you that came in to have your affidavits done. So thank you.
Thank you all in Northwest Grassroots. This is amazing. I have been a supporter of Liberty State for a couple of years now. The reason I am a supporter of Liberty State is because I used to work in government, and it does not work. And so I have been watching what's been going on. Of course, I've listened to Matt Shea and what he's had to say. But I'm not doing this because of what Matt Shea said. I'm doing this because I want my family, my 8 children, my 17 grandchildren to grow up in a free state. I want them to be able to make choices about their bodies. I want them to be able to be educated without being indoctrinated. I would like to see them happy and productive citizens, which without being taxed to death getting there. And this seemed to be the one place that I, as an older person, can leave a legacy for my family, and also to have a place for my husband and I to retire in comfort with our family around us. Liberty State is critical. This is, as far as I can see, this is the only way we're going to be able to stop all of the nonsense that's going on in Olympia. And I agree with every legislator that says once you cross that crest, it's a completely different feeling. We need to keep our state. We need to have our state. And whether we keep the name Liberty or not, this is our state. And our state deserves to have its own people running it, not Olympia running us. And so please come on out whenever we're having our meetings. Our next meeting is the 28th at the North Spokane Library. It's an organizational meeting. Some of you I've seen there. We have emails going out on positions that need to be filled. We need people talking with people and learning about what we need to do to become our own state. It is doable. We can be our own people. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, is there going to be a caravan or a bus ride to Olympia? I heard that, I think it's the 29th of Friday.
You're going to give her a mic?
There is a rally that's going on Olympia. It's called Lexic, Liberty Exit, Washington. And so the nickname is Lexic. I like that. We are working on putting something together, and we'll let you know through Northwest Grassroots what we get put together, so that anybody that's willing to go over to Olympia and be part of that can join us. We just haven't put it all together yet. Yeah. It's Spokane at libertystate.org. It's all one word. You're welcome. Thank you for asking. I encourage all of you to come out. This is us. This is Grassroots. If we can do this for Washington Strikes Back, I think we can do this for ourselves and for our state. So thank you all for inviting me, and thank you, Northwest Grassroots.
Thank you. Okay. So, you know, and I hope you picked up. She said, you know, right now we're calling it Liberty State. I heard somebody the other day say, I don't care if they call it Eastern Washington. You know, we have West Virginia and Virginia. I mean, it doesn't matter. Don't get hung up on the name. Don't get hung up on the flag. Don't get hung up here and there. Just understand that if you want to really have your values and your principles and things represented, you cannot continue to operate as we are now. It just isn't working, and it isn't going to work. So, not good. So let's get a little closer to home. Not going to be very big here because I got Mike Fagan coming, and I'm really excited about that. So Spokane County, do you think this was good news? 83% of property owners are going to be paying less in property taxes. And initially what happened last year, I think you probably saw your property taxes increased, and that was to comply with McCleary. That brought in more than what was expected due to those property values that also came up. And so this year we're looking at decreased tax bills. Now I understand that's not statewide, but at least in Spokane County, it's pretty nice. The other thing we have looking at is West Plains job growth. And this is really going to impact home values, expansion, development, et cetera, on the West Plains. So I've listed there the different areas that, you know, just you're looking how do they come to those job numbers. But you've got to understand that's going to affect housing, it's going to affect their transportation. They have a little rail train thing that's going from the industrial park down to rail spurs, that kind of thing now. And water is important in the West Plains because they do not tap into the aquifer, the Rathdrum aquifer, as Spokane Valley and City of Spokane do, and they have had problems, so that'll be an interesting situation. So now we get to the City of Spokane, and I am just so excited that Mike Fagan, I'll get Mike's picture up there, and you know, Mike is a warrior. He is the lone conservative on the City Council. He is a co-founder of Voters Want More Choices, so you've got Tim Eyman with the $30 tabs, yay! He co-hosts the talk radio show, The Right Spokane Perspective. He's the commander of the VFW Post 1474. He is a veteran. He is one hell of a guy. And we are so lucky to have him on the City Council. I think he's terming out, and maybe he can get a civil life back, I'm not sure. But normally he's busy on our movie nights, and he told me he didn't have time constraints, so here he is. Yay!
Proud to be a veteran. There you are. All right. By the way, come on, guys. I thought you got the new picture up there.
I like that one better.
Anyway, you know, Cecily was just talking about this water problem that the West Plains is about ready to experience. And unfortunately, for some time now, the residents of Fairchild Air Force Base has been drinking out of what appears to be a contaminated well. Well, the reason why I bring that up is because I wanted to let you know that a council associate of mine, Councilmember Brian Beggs, that represents the South Hill, is part of the legal team with a class action suit suing the government over that. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Can't we fix things without suing?
Yes, as a matter of fact, he is. He is running against Philip Tyler, former NAACP president for council president in the city of Spokane. Speaking of which, folks, you've heard this before. I cannot stress this enough. You've heard it from all of the TV talking heads, the radio talking heads. This year, November's municipal election, and I am darn serious, is going to be the most important election that at least I've seen in my life up to this particular point. The direction of the whole region is at stake here. You know what road we've been driving on. You want to see us take a real sharp left? You let Council President Stuckert and Councilmember Beggs take over the city of Spokane, it's going to get real, real ugly. All right, I'm going to start at the top because I just love our mendacious governor. You know, he went ahead and declared he's going to be the climate change and global warming candidate in 2020 presidential election. And here recently, did I hear him right? He actually regrets that he's white.
He and Rachel.
Are we like pandering? Oof. And the legislature, absolutely out of control. Check it out, guys. Private daycare, being put out of business. Forced vaccinations. This one's going to get you. Teaching consent to kindergartners. Okay? That's what's up, guys. Plastic bags or lack thereof. How about Washington being the Bigfoot state? Billion-dollar transportation packages laced with a carbon tax. But wait, there's more. A direct assault on landlords and property owners. The dreaded but expected income tax. You know, a couple of years ago, the Spokane Regional Health District, the health district here in the county, ended up publishing a little bit of a study that took a look at the various inequities and environmental differences, et cetera, in the 29 various neighborhoods that we have in the city of Spokane. And they came up with this statement that if you came from and lived on the South Hill, you would actually live 17 years longer than a guy like me that come from Hilliard. Well, guess what our Washington State Senate just did? They just passed what they call the HEAL Act. And this is an Envision Spokane-esque piece of legislation to ensure environmental justice. And everybody gets a right to a healthful environment. Okay? Where trees and bugs and dirt and rocks and grass have rights. Guess what? All of this stuff is being led by our own 3rd Legislative District delegation.
Yep.
Those guys have been in control for going on, about 36 years now. Okay? The one thing that you folks can do this coming Saturday over at the Mack Museum, our 3rd Legislative District is due to have a town hall. You can log onto their web pages and check it out. Maybe you can go there and just let them know this. Our own KXLY just reported on TV that the poor in Washington State pay more taxes than the middle class or the upper class. What is the legislature doing right now? They're raising taxes. They're creating taxes. They're going to create more poverty and they're going to create more homelessness. There was a radio great, boy, he was huge in the Bay Area, Michael Savage. Love his line. Liberalism is a mental disease. Okay? Look at who is now the face of the Democrat Party on the national level, AOC. And can you believe somebody actually stepped forward and created a comic book featuring AOC as a superhero. Oh my word. Check it out. KXLY just reported that the poor in Washington state pay more taxes than the middle or upper classes. Washington, and the number was this, Washington's 51st and worst, okay? 51st is the worst. Washington is the 51st and worst in overall taxation of our low income residents as well as our poor. They are 48th worse as far as middle class earners are concerned. 51st worst, highest overall tax burden between the rich and the poor. Unfortunately, that sounds like we're adding fuel to the let's tax the rich argument. You know what I'm saying? Washington is 51st and worst in highest sales and excise taxes. Washington didn't make any of the lowest or the best lists anywhere, and according to KXLY, they got this information from an organization known as Wallet Hub, for those that are interested. Point of the matter is this: what are they doing in the legislature aside from taking away constitutional rights? They are creating regulation. Regulation costs dollars. They are creating and increasing taxation. So once again, folks, y'all should be showing up this coming Saturday at the Mack Museum for that third legislative delegation town hall. That I didn't know, or else I'd have put that out. So that's why I said check their webpage, okay?
Well, and you know what Mike's saying is really think of some questions and do go and do put these guys on the spot. Ask them tough questions.
Oh, you betcha. All right, as you well know, the city of Spokane, Council President Stucker just got done passing a public safety levy. In my humble opinion, folks, that coupled with the fact that we have not had a police guild contract since 2016, and as a result of the Combined Communications Center regional emergency communication situation that's getting ready to come online, we're looking pretty ugly in the city of Spokane. Just the emergency communication situation is going to put the city of Spokane $3 to $4 million in the hole. The levy, as it was constructed, did not take into consideration economic fluctuation, expansions, contractions, future labor negotiations, or anything to that effect. All it took into consideration was straight rates, salary, benefits for X many years. That particular levy is going to go into the red in the next couple of years, and how do you think government's going to end up having to make that up? Again, for 20 police officers and 30 firemen. The levy didn't buy any equipment, by the way. I think the mathematical equation goes something like unsustainable plus unworkable equals irresponsible, doesn't it? Did I get that right, or is that my Common Core kicking in? Right. So I guess what I'm saying here, folks, is whoever is going to end up becoming mayor, and boy, I tell you, that field is getting very large and competitive. They are definitely going to be faced with some serious situations here. I can tell you that the attitude of the administration currently with regard to the police guild contract is, let it go to arbitration. Okay? All right. As you all know, the state legislature is on the verge of passing, if they hadn't already passed, a law that would now allow municipalities and counties or excuse me, municipalities to increase the sales tax that would come directly to the city and utilize that sales tax proceed for the purpose exclusively of affordable and homeless housing. Okay? Council President Stuckert just got done doing his kickoff meeting a couple of nights ago, I understand, and he was rumored to have stated that as soon as the legislature passes that, he is now going to go ahead and start pushing for a councilmanic vote to implement said sales tax increase. A couple of things coming up here pretty quick. Housing quality standards. Landlord-tenant policy changes. Lime scooters. Big time. And the big question of the day is, do we treat Lime scooters differently than we do other scooters? Because other scooters are required to have helmets, but a lot of the council members say, let's give the Lime guys a pass. As long as they're riding downtown and through Riverfront Park, they don't need to have helmets. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then they crash, kill themselves, or are mentally disabled, and you guys are going to get sued.
Oh, you bet. Well, just keep an eye on the inlander, because I took a libertarian stance on that issue. Anyway, housing quality standards, landlord-tenant policy, Lime scooters, the Sustainability Committee. That's because last year the city of Spokane became fossil-free. We have just received, but have not disseminated down to the council level, the downtown parking study. I can tell you that for those folks that have already reviewed it, it's very likely that the parking pricing scenario is going to change considerably, and parking downtown could very well get a lot more expensive than what it is currently. Now, bear in mind, the parking meter scenario was created because of the River Park Square settlement. That was it. Okay? Since that time, with the increases, et cetera, not only are we paying down that debt, and we will be finished paying it in 2026, but we are now doling some of that money out to the Downtown Spokane Partnership for beautification, security, things to that effect. Okay? If I had my druthers, as soon as we can pay off that debt, those parking meters go away, everybody gets to park for free.
That would be nice. Ain't gonna happen.
Hey, you know, you end up creating a tax for a specific purpose. The last time we did this in the city of Spokane was what? The Maple Street Bridge, wasn't it? Okay. Pay me 10 cents until it's paid off, and then it goes away. Well, that's the way taxes are supposed to be. All right. Last Thursday, surprise, Council President ended up bringing forward a emergency budget ordinance. It wasn't special budget ordinance. It wasn't just a budget ordinance. It was an emergency. We have our study sessions on Thursday afternoon. Okay? So he ended up, in accordance with the OPMA, posting a notice that said that we were going to have a legislative session, and it was all about $30,000 for free bus passes for the homeless, so that the homeless could get from the warming centers in the morning to whatever services that they're seeking. I can tell you, folks, I've spent some time at the warming centers. I've spent some time getting to know some of the folks that are utilizing those services. I can tell you that a lot of the folks that I did come in contact were homeless long term. Okay? Some seemed to be cogent and of sound mind, whereas others, mental illness, unknown illness, and then of course drug and alcohol addicted. Well, I get it with the drug and alcohol addicted and the mentally ill, but those that I encountered that just prefer that lifestyle, prefer that kind of company. You would think that if at one point in their life they were going to be seeking services, they would have been able to figure this out. You know, free bus pass isn't the magic wand that gets you from point A to point B like that. Anyway, it wasn't an emergency. It could have waited until Monday night. You know, who knows the reason why it was brought forward in the manner that it was. I have, in my discussions over the last year with homeless advocates, homeless in general, I kind of have a feeling that the next step in this trip for the city of Spokane and the council is either going to be, it could be an either and or, I'm going to say, storage lockers, okay, and a waiver or a pass on serving hot food at the shelters, okay. I don't have anything to do with the hot food at shelters, but I definitely made those folks know that that would be the SRHD. They need to go check in with the health department and see what they can do about convincing the health department to be just as compassionate as the city of Spokane. All right, some good news though, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what kind of a ride I've ended up having city financially, financial-wise, by virtue of the housing crisis and the fact that our real estate market in the city was rather hot. It's cooled down a lot in the last 6 months, but it was definitely hot. Looking at single-family housing permits, building single-family homes in the city of Spokane, over the last 10 years, all year long, we would probably see an average of about 25 permits pulled for the whole year. Because over the last decade, the vast majority of the permits pulled were, you know, commercial, government buildings, multifamily type stuff. Just in the month of January, 31 permits, okay? So that housing market is getting hot. It may have something to do with some of the infill rules that we just got done relaxing and changing, you know, and things to that effect. But boy, I just found that rather mind-blowing that we got way more in 1 month than we had on average over the last 10 years, the whole year. So that was pretty good.
How is the inventory for lot building in the city?
Well, I can tell you that there are definitely a lot of vacant lots. We don't really have any large vacant lots unless you're talking about 5 Mile or Indian Trail area that would accommodate large multifamily complexes. So there's not very many of those left. The vast majority of what we got would be something that could accommodate you know, the triplex, fourplex, stuff like that, you know. You know, what we are going to be seeing over the next couple of years also is right along 2nd Avenue and I-90. It appears as though WashDOT, in preparation of the north-south corridor coming in, and then of course the final design or final concept, if you will, they have signaled to the city that they've really overbought real estate, so there is going to be an opportunity to get some big lots back into the city inventory. Pardon? No, not a taking. Now, there may have been several families that got affected by an eminent domain, but it's my understanding that the vast majority of them were, the homeowners were offered whatever kind of deal that WashDOT was offering, fair market, whatever. Let's see. building concentration here through last year, way up on North Division in the West Central neighborhood, my community of Hilliard, and get this, guys, have had some great success the last couple of years with my colleagues and Hilliard. We have a public development authority up there. I have been able to, in the last year, break a 30-year standing logjam that existed between Beacon Hill Event Center owner Pete Rayner and the city of Spokane. I mean, this got real ugly about 10 years ago because Pete was threatening about a $50 million lawsuit. And that's about the time that the city threw a bucket of ice on Pete and said, we can't talk to you anymore. So we patched up that relationship and hung in there and did some serious battle behind the scenes, and there you go. 30 years later, he's finally got himself a developer agreement, and he's moving forward on about 234 units of workforce housing. And then right across...
When you say workforce housing, what does that mean?
That'll be market rate housing that would be, I'm not going to say reserved, but it would be made available to those that work in East Hilliard. Because here's the next big good news. Larry Stone, developer of Playfair. The guy is just on fire right now. He ended up buying 22 acres on the west side of Freya, just south of the Hilliard Post Office, and he is going to be building the Esmeralda Industrial Park.
Oh, wow.
Right there. Just north of the Minnehaha housing area, right across the street from Esmeralda Golf Course. I got workforce housing, and I got the potential of 1,000 positions coming out of that industrial park there, with a rail spur.
Well, and that Harlan Douglas's storage thing there where the armory used to be looks pretty darn good. I mean, it may not be what you wanted exactly, but it sure improved the area.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And if folks are familiar with the black wrought iron gated storage facility that's on Foothills Boulevard, where Yokes is, where Washdot is, that's a Harlan Douglas storage facility, and we anticipate the one in Hilliard resembling that. So I agree, it's going to look good, for sure. A couple of other things. Back in 2011, a couple of years before I went into office, a guy by the name of John Snyder and my former seatmate Amber Waldriff came up with this wonderful idea called Complete Streets. Okay? Get this. You get a 60-foot wide street, but then you only get one lane of travel in each direction, and then you get 2 bicycle lanes, and then you get 2 planting strips, and then you get 2 extra wide sidewalks. And they call that complete streets, and that is the development standard in the city of Spokane. Last year, blew it out of the water. Finally convinced my colleagues, look, we can't build roads in the city of Spokane using complete streets. Everybody familiar with Freya above Wellesley? You know how the houses are right on the street, okay? Do you expect us to spend millions of dollars buying real estate right away in order to adhere to this wonderful utopian idea known as complete streets? I got 3 streets waived in Hilliard, okay? Freya, Wellesley, and Rowan. So, moving on.
Have you had fun?
The trolley folly's coming in, okay, STA. And right now, STA is waiting on the $50+ million from the Trump administration so that they can go ahead and get this electric bus project going. As you probably have heard, the city is now revising its transportation plan on Riverside and Main downtown. We've kind of experimented on the far east side of Main Street with diagonal parking in the middle of the street and things like that. Well, we're going to be putting some serious bicycle lanes on Riverside and Main. And that was until a law firm contacted the city on behalf of all of the businesses that line Riverside Avenue saying, we don't want that design. A couple of other little neat factoids here. Since I took office 7 years ago, the split between public and private development in the city, okay, even in face of the recession, okay, 14.83% over 7 years, okay? That would mean that there was only 14.83% government projects versus private. During the Verner administration, though, prior to us coming in, that particular percentage was 34.25% government versus private. From 2013 to 2018, the city comprised an average of 46% of the total construction in the county. 46%, that's nice. And the city just got recognized by the federal government, the Trump administration, for our integrated stormwater approach. I don't know how many folks knew this, but when I went into office, we were about 5 years away from the deadline, a federal EPA deadline, to get rid of the stormwater outflow pipes that we had discharging directly into the Spokane River. We had over 110 of them. And we had 20 years to square it away. Well, here we had administrations and councils that just kind of dawdled around. And then here we are 5 years away from deadline. We come into office and we were faced with the potential for a court decree. We were looking at over $1 billion project. And the city would have, again through court decree, not had any say in the design and things to that effect. So we came up with an alternate plan that was priced at roughly $350 million. Was the first municipality to approve the use or put out there for purchase green bonds. And we were just, like I said, recognized by the Trump administration, who is now adopting our integrated stormwater approach to get out to other municipalities and counties and whatnot. Okay, now, $30 tabs. You're going to see a lot of arrows and spears and pistol shots coming my way here a little bit later on this year. The reason being is because the $30 license tab initiative, which you're going to get a chance to vote on in November, also decimates Sound Transit's ST3 program, as well as the City of Spokane's Transportation Benefit District. Now, believe it or not, you guys are dodging a huge bullet here, all you Spokaners, because a couple of my colleagues were talking about doubling that bad boy. And they can do that, councilmanically. They could make it 40 bucks, leave that stand for 2 years, and then raise it another 10 without a vote of the people. Mm-hmm. But $30 license tabs on the November ballot, and I do anticipate it passing, is definitely going to take care of that. Let's see here. Sanctuary City Initiative. Yeah. We have been battling this bad boy in the court. We've been to the Court of Appeals, etc. We are headed to the Washington State Supreme Court now. That's where we're going. Washington State Supreme Court. We went through the localized lower level appeals boards. And I'm telling you what, I don't know where some of these commissioners and judges ended up going to school, but it was made pretty evident to me that there was collusion. And I mean, reporter even reported on it, and there was a story on it in the Inler. I don't get it. But neither here nor there. The petitioners have come together, and they did send a letter off to the state Supreme Court within the deadline time, and hopefully sometime in the next quarter, the state Supreme Court is going to be faced with a decision whether or not they're going to hear the case or they're going to pass on it. If they pass on it, that'd be really cool. Then we're going to go up another ladder rung. That would be extremely cool. And let's see here, Monday, for those of you that live on the east side of town or would like to experience what a town hall style city council meeting is like, we are going to be at the East Central Community Center on Monday night at 6 p.m. And the reason why I wanted to extend that invite is because my seatmate, Councilmember Kate Burke, has an ordinance that's been on the agenda since August of last year. And the reason why it's been hanging around as long as it has is because we've been deferring it and deferring it and deferring it. This is the ordinance that opens City Hall up to everybody. Okay? And you know who that everybody is.
So that's the homeless being able to
utilize City Hall as a warming center during the day. Yeah, you bet. So that's Monday night at 6, by the way, East Central Community Center. All right, just about done here, folks. Okay, my Hilliard VFW post was bestowed in honor this year because we are going to be the hosts of this year's Family Freedom Festival. This thing takes place on March 30th from 11 to 3 p.m. And we are located there at East Diamond and Regal Street in Hilliard. And we are going to be featuring the COPS program, Mounted Patrol. We're going to have some horses and whatnot there, Operation ID for the kids and families, veteran service providers, police, fire, military vehicles, and things to that effect. Pardon me?
Don't forget the MRAP.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. Oh, yeah, the MRAP. Yeah, you bet. All right, and
you know, something I want to say about this VFW
sure.
Place is that if you sign up on their Facebook page, you sort of get notifications when they do have events that are open to those of us that aren't veterans. And I don't know how it happens, but we have gone there, I'm not sure how many times, on the wrong day. And you're going, oh my gosh, we thought this is, oh no, that's next week. Oh no, that was last week. And they're so nice and they invite us in anyway. So, but you have a lot of events and things going on there, and it's really a fun group of people. So
you bet. You betcha.
Sign up for that on that Facebook page, because Mike lets you know what's going on.
Yeah, you bet. That would be my Facebook page, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I created one for the Hilliard VFW. But the political enemies reported me because I had candidates coming in serving breakfast, just getting to know the people, and, you know, no electioneering or anything like that, but the likes of Rick Eichstad ended up reporting me, and Facebook took down the Hilliard VFW page.
Oh,
so
my gosh.
you just send me, Mike Fagan, in a purple shirt with a great big old smile on his face, a friend request, and I do either daily, every other day, weekly. I will definitely be posting what's going on over at the VFW Post. And then, for all of you who would like to engage in a walk to end veteran suicide, Friday, the 22nd of March, this event is called Silkies for Heroes. And what it is a veteran, a young veteran at that, Iraq, Afghanistan, came back to the United States and was a little bit different when he came back. He was a Marine, he was witness, and I do believe some of you are going to remember this. There was an Osprey that ended up crashing. 19 Marines ended up dying. Yeah, you remember that, John? Okay, he was there. That whacked him out a little bit. But, you know, like a lot of other vets, you hold it in. You hold it in for as long as you can. Well, 22 veterans a day, folks, on average, committing suicide. These guys, they can't hold it in anymore. So when this guy came back to the States and got together with his family and his kids, he figured out that there wasn't any counseling out there for families, for couples, okay? Because I'll tell you something, and you vets are gonna know what I'm saying. Just a simple fact that you're in front of the DI or the drill sergeant, you're in basic training, you know how they strip you down and then build you right back up. Lean, mean fighting machine, right? Well, then you go to exotic places, you meet some interesting people, and then you come back home. You're different than when you left. And this veteran, who has a 40-acre ranch in Clayton, just north of Deer Park, has been offering his ranch and farm as a place for vets with PTSD to bring their wives. Just reconnect. Spend some quiet time. Pick some apples and then press those apples into cider, cherries, pit the cherry. I mean, you know, reconnect with the kids. And I have never encountered anything like that. And I tell you, I'm definitely connected to a bunch of service organizations, but it's nothing like that at all. He calls his organization Heroes Homestead, and his webpage, www.heroeshomestead.org. Again, heroeshomestead.org. Anyway, on Friday the 22nd, they're doing a walk, and they're going to start at Riverfront Park. They're going to take a walk with some breaks in between time to the VA hospital. And again, it's a walk to end veteran suicide. So, and then the last thing I wanted to, no, I'm sorry, I lied. The second to the last thing. All right, as you guys well know, Tim Ben and I, we have a ministry on the American Christian Network, the Liberty Broadcast System, and I just celebrated my 10th year. And in that 10 years, I've had 3 co-hosts, George McGrath, Jeff Baxter, and then Tim Ben. And in that 10-year time period, running my show Monday through Friday, I've only had occasion to have to retract or say I'm sorry for something that I ended up saying because of fake news 4 times in 10 years. Okay? We are morphing the show. Right Spokane Perspective is now moving away from a sponsor-funded, sponsor-supported type model. We're going to a listener-funded model. And the reason why we're doing that is because we're going to be real busy this election season, Tim and I. And we definitely want to be in a position to continue to bring you everything that's going on in the city of Spokane. How the races are going, what kind of legislation is happening, who's pandering to who, the whole bit. And that's going to mean that Tim and I are going to have to be even more flexible than what we are now. Now, currently, folks, we are already on twice a day. 9 in the morning, 9 at night, Monday through Friday. On the AM dial, it's 630. We're also on the FM dial now, 96.5 FM. And you can live stream from the ACN webpage when the show is playing. In just a short bit, we are going to be engaging in podcasts. So we're going to make those available, and that way you can listen to whatever episode that you want, whatever guest you want, 24/7. And I'll tell you, I announced that listener-funded model just a couple of times the last month and a half of 2018, and I'm telling you what, thank you, Lord. The support, wow, absolutely amazing. And Tim and I treat this as a ministry. We don't get reimbursed, we don't get paid. All we do is collect funds so that we can defray the cost of the airtime monthly, and obviously pay for the podcast equipment that we just recently acquired. But if anybody here would like to cut us a donation to help us defray that airtime cost, we would greatly appreciate it. And you can do so and write that check to Fagan LLC, P.O. Box 7620, Spokane 99207. Again, that'll be P.O.B. 7620, 99207. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Well, I just have an announcement. The 3rd District Town Hall at 10 o'clock Saturday at the One Act Center, I think it's 2600 block of 1st down there on the area of town. It's called Brown's Edition.
Brown's Edition at the Mac
10 o'clock.
Museum. 10 o'clock. There you go.
Very
and
good.
Do yourself a favor. They may be screening people that come. So if you are asked if you're from Spokane, say, yeah, I'm from Spokane, South Hill.
I'll go fast.
Okay? Because if you ain't from the city, they're liable not to want to talk to you.
Good deal.
Anything else?
What I do want you guys to do is really listen to the right Spokane perspective, because it really, you know, a lot of us don't live in the city of Spokane. I kid the guys from the Spokane Valley City Council that they need to build a wall, keep them out of there. This is crazy. So if you really want to know what's going on in the city of Spokane, do listen and recognize that Mike and Tim are really fighting an uphill battle, and but at least you're getting the word out. So we appreciate you, and congratulations on your 10 years.
Well, thank you very much, and I just want to leave you guys with this. While Cecily was correct, and technically I am termed out of my district level council position, just want to let everybody to know I do aspire to stay in city government.
Thank you very much. So John's telling me I need to hurry, and I am going to. You have the sheets on your table, the long skinny ones, and those are going to go through the upcoming events. So I don't think I need to do too much other than take a peek at what their subject's going to be and when they are. So you've got Mayor Condon coming up on Friday. Republicans of Spokane County didn't give me information until today, and these were done yesterday, but I believe Robin Ball is going to be talking about gun legislation. That's next Monday. Northwest Citizens Power Coalition, Rob's talked to you about this. They meet next Tuesday, I believe it is, Spokane Valley Library. Church of Planned Parenthood, Wednesday, March 20th. This is, I believe, across the street from Planned Parenthood. And Citizens Alliance for Property Rights, they're going to be talking about state regulations on building and renovation projects. And now we have something for you guys to really honestly think about and understand what is happening to us. What are we being fed? What are we being told? All that kind of stuff. This is pretty crazy.
Hang on.
Hang
on. I was just going to say, if you'd like to move closer, this is the last video. We're done when this is over. If you'd like to move closer so you can hear it better, that's great. This is 22 minutes long. This is what's happening right now to America. And I know some of you have already seen it. You've already expressed to me that that's exactly what you got out of it. So this is probably the key thing that we're going to be taking forward as we see what happens in this next election cycle that Mike was alluding to, and it's killer. So do pay attention, and we'll move.
And it is open mic after this to just talk about anything we talked about tonight, this video, or whatever else you want to talk about. So we'll turn it up and let's.
The brains behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Mr. Reagan.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not really the Congresswoman of New York's 14th Congressional District. She is, essentially, an actress. She's merely playing the part of a New York Congresswoman. I know this sounds crazy, but bear with me. In 2017, a group called the Justice Democrats held auditions for potential congressional candidates that they would run on their platform for various congressional seats throughout the country. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's brother Gabriel submitted her for the role. Now, I've auditioned for many acting roles in my day. I've also cast many of my own projects. I know how this works. If you find somebody with star power, even if they don't 100% fit the part, you go with it. Obviously, AOC has star power. Just look at her. She's a superstar, the most famous person in Congress, maybe ever. Their casting was perfect. Now, I didn't have to go digging for evidence for this, because they freely admit it. They brag about it.
Back in 2016, we put out a call for nominations. We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
My brother told me that he had sent my nomination in the summer, but I was like literally working out of a restaurant then, and I was like, there's no way.
A casting call. They had a casting call. They cast Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the role of Congresswoman. And they did this so they could promote their own agenda. In this video, I'm going to make 3 very serious accusations against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. 1, she did not actually run for Congress. 2, she is a puppet congresswoman. And 3, the people controlling her are very dangerous. The first point I have already made. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not run. She was run. What I mean by that is Alexandria did not take it upon herself to run for Congress. She was used by this group, the Justice Democrats, as a figurehead through which they could gain control of New York's 14th Congressional District House seat. These guys not only scripted and produced AOC's beautiful campaign video, but they organized the entire grassroots campaign effort. They handled all the fundraising, the social media, the get out the vote effort. They turned Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez into a brand, and they used that brand to take control of that House seat. The people of New York did not elect a Puerto Rican girl from Brooklyn to represent them. They elected an Indian guy from Texas and a white guy from Tennessee. Now, let's move on to my second accusation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a puppet congresswoman. AOC does not make her own policy decisions. She does not decide which way she votes on legislation. She defers completely to her team. This is a serious claim, I know, but consider the following evidence. This is a video of Corbin Trent, one of Alexandria's top advisors, speaking with Zach Alexi, the Saul Alinsky-style strategy expert who organized much of AOC's campaign. Corbin Trent is now Alexandria's top congressional aide.
And what's the stat that we were looking at earlier about
how much people are making?
Yeah, about low-income people and how big of a percent of our society that is now.
40%. Well, people that make $19,999 a year or less. So people that make $20,000 a year or less make up right around 40% of Americans, right? So it's
40% of Americans make less than 20,000.
Yeah. It's like 60 million people make less than $20,000 a year.
200 million Americans make less than $20,000 a year. That's 40% of this country.
40% of Americans make less than 20,000.
That's 40% of this country.
These guys are coaching her. They're scripting everything she says. You notice when she goes off script because she suddenly starts babbling incomprehensibly. The girl in this next clip is now the head of the Justice Democrats. Her name, Alexandra Rojas.
Really, I think a big anchor piece is the Green New Deal and talking about it in a frame of social, racial, and economic justice and a mobilization of our economy and our society at the scale of what we did during World War II.
The Green New Deal, how's that going to be different?
I think what we're calling for is a mobilization of our economy, of our society on the scale that we haven't seen since World War II.
Like, this is the war, this is our World War II.
It's clear that AOC is being coached on absolutely every policy point she makes. And if this is not enough to give you pause, consider that the Green New Deal was drafted in one weekend by her staff. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had zero to do with it. As far as I could find, she wasn't even in the room. Now, this is AOC's landmark legislation proposal. It essentially sums up her entire platform and lays out everything she wants to do in Congress. She didn't even participate in the drafting of the legislation. And again, these people aren't even trying to cover this up. They're proud of it. Again, AOC is a figurehead, a mouthpiece. The congressional seat is being operated behind the scenes. Old interviews show that the Justice Democrats initially declared that they wanted candidates of substance. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a bartender. Now, who is more useful to an evil organization trying to take over Congress? A principled politician who happens to align with their views, or a pawn? A malleable innocent who they can manipulate, somebody completely ignorant of politics who must rely wholly on them to direct all her political positions, statements, and votes. AOC has had enough embarrassing gaffes to know that if she goes off script, it hurts. It can humiliate her. So she has become absolutely dependent on the instruction of her handlers. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez seems like, to anyone unfamiliar with her arrangement, like a bit of an enigma. Most of the time she seems to bumble along with no apparent idea about what she's doing. But sometimes she says and does things that seem kind of brilliant.
Let's play a lightning round game. I'm going to be the bad guy, which I'm sure half the room would agree with anyway. And I want to get away with as much bad things as possible, ideally to enrich myself and advance my interest, even if that means putting my interests ahead of the American people. The limits that are placed on me as a congresswoman, compared to the executive branch and compared to, say, the President of the United States, would you say that Congress has the same sort of standard of accountability?
In terms of laws that apply to the president, yeah, there's just almost no laws at all that apply to the president.
So I'm being held, and every person in this body is being held to a higher ethical standard than the President of the United States.
That's right, because there are some ethics committee rules that apply to you.
And it's already super legal, as we've seen, for me to be a pretty bad guy. So it's even easier for the President of the United States to be one, I would assume.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
This is initially what got me thinking. Who's pulling the strings here? Who's the man behind the curtain? I went to CPAC last week, as some of you know, in Washington, D.C., and I met a lot of people in politics. Occasionally, somebody would bring up AOC. I always took this opportunity to ask one question. Who's really running the show? Who's the brains behind Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? One guy had an answer. He grabbed his phone, he pulled up a Politico article, and he shoved it into my hand. That's who, he said. The man behind the curtain is this guy, Saikat Chakrabarti. Saikat was AOC's campaign manager and is now her chief of staff. Saikat came out of Harvard and worked as an organizer for the Bernie Sanders campaign. This guy doesn't really have the charisma to run for office himself. He's a little awkward. He might have Asperger's or something like that. He kind of reminds me of Daniel Radcliffe, actually. But don't let his disarming awkwardness fool you. He's been an extremely effective political operative. He's got some terrifying political influences, and he's suspected of committing some severe campaign finance violations. But we'll get into all that later. Saikat Chakrabarti is a sinister character, and hearing more about him later will give you chills. But the man who hired him to head up the Justice Democrats will horrify you, if you can even believe it. The mastermind behind it all, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. Now, this may all sound completely nuts, like a big conspiracy theory, but the Justice Democrats was heavily promoted on the Young Turks. We have video evidence from the inception through into the campaigns.
I think they have maxed out on incompetence. So that is why we must choose a new path. And that is what we embark upon today. What we need to do is take over the Democratic Party. And as Martin Luther King said when he did the Civil Rights Movement, he said he was doing it not just to help African Americans, but to save the soul of America. Here we're going to try to save the soul of the Democratic Party by boarding the Democratic Party ship and taking it over. How are we going to do that? We're going to run strong progressives. From now on, there will be a new wing of the Democratic Party, and it will be the Justice Democrats. We will seek social justice, economic justice, racial justice, and plain old justice.
Now, you might think, if Cenk wanted influence in government, why didn't he just run? If Saikat Chakrabarti wanted influence in government, I mean, despite his awkwardness, why didn't he run? Why put up AOC? The goals of this group are far grander and far more sinister than simply electing a single congresswoman to office. The goals are to take over the Democratic Party, eventually take control of Congress, and in turn, control the United States. And I know all of this sounds completely insane, but they have expressed their intentions very clearly on camera.
We're going to run hundreds of candidates, and we're going to primary all of the establishment Democrats. So we're not going to be like, is it Chuck Schumer? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? No, it's a hard no. But wait a minute now. Are you really going to primary vulnerable Democrats? Yeah, that's the whole point. If in 2018 we don't achieve our grand vision of a wholesale change in 2 years, which is very, very hard, we know that, right? Are you kidding me? If you got 6, let alone 12, let alone 24 people in Congress, you know what would happen in Washington? People would freak the hell out. They'd be like, oh my God, what in the world? These guys that had no money to begin with, no nothing to begin with, just put 24 people in Congress. Look, we want hundreds. We want to replace Congress.
In an article in Politico, one journalist wrote, "The group's criteria for picking primary targets is unclear and at times contradictory." Yeah, that's because their goal is not ideological. Their goal is control and power.
Washington doesn't care about beseeching. That's not how it works. They care about power. So primaries are an exercise in power. It's way past time that progressives exercise their power in this country, and that's exactly what these guys are doing.
Waleed Shahid, communications director for the Justice Democrats, has said, "You can tacitly support Medicare for All and the Green New Deal, and we still might primary you because there's enough energy in the district to find somebody more charismatic and compelling who is actually going to be a movement builder." No, you know why they might primary you? Because they don't own you. And maybe they found somebody that they think can beat you and that they can control, another AOC. Even Ilhan Omar has said it's quite inappropriate for groups to decide on whether or not somebody deserves to represent their district. Those decisions need to come from the people that we represent. And Ilhan Omar was actually endorsed by the Justice Democrats after she won her primary. The reason more people aren't speaking out against this completely unethical political tactic is that nobody knows it's happening. I mean, you might be asking, if all these guys are so corrupt, if what they're doing is so obviously sinister, why hasn't anybody else reported on it? Their tactics have been extremely different to anything seen in the US before, and that's probably why nobody has copped on to what they're doing yet. Also, mostly what they're doing is annoying Democrats, so conservatives haven't paid all that much attention. The first thing the Justice Democrats did was to try to primary Democratic incumbents. What that means is they would mount primary campaigns against incumbent Democrats, establishment Democrats already in Congress that they didn't like. This, as far as I can tell, was Cenk Uyghur's idea. Basically, the concept was, since many establishment Democrats weren't progressive enough, i.e. socialist, the Justice Democrats would nominate their own candidates to mount a primary challenge. One of the guys they didn't like was Joe Crowley, the guy that they put AOC up against. He had been in Congress for 20 years. Other members of Congress have reached out to AOC to try to convince her to stop primarying establishment candidates, but they're reaching out to the wrong person. AOC does not control the show. They should be trying to convince Saikat Chakrabarti. He's the one AOC takes her orders from. But Cenk and Saikat's plan is not to win a couple of congressional seats. It's total congressional domination.
Look, we want hundreds. We want to replace Congress.
Basically, Cenk's plan in creating the Justice Democrats was to replace all the Democrats in Congress with his own people. Radical leftists, socialists, people who would fall in line with his ideology. And he did it. He actually did it. Now, Cenk comes up with a clever quip from time to time, and he's been able to create a very successful propaganda platform with the Young Turks. But if you've ever watched him, you know he's not exactly a genius. He talks and acts more like a two-bit thug than a political pundit. So how did he do it? He hired geniuses. He brought in the top guys from the Bernie campaign. The Bernie campaign was unprecedented in their grassroots success. They were brilliant. I actually did a lot of research on this, and the keys to their success are equal parts nefarious and creepy, but they are, nevertheless, very effective. And you gotta hand it to Cenk. Bringing these guys on was a brilliant move. Fresh from the Bernie campaign with nothing to do, they must have been itching to tackle a new left-wing political project. So Cenk had this crazy idea. Replace all the Democrats in Congress with his own hand-picked radical left socialists. And he had a brilliant idea. Get the geniuses from the Bernie campaign to do it for him. And they did it. They succeeded. Perhaps not as well as they want it, but it did work, and that is terrifying. Of the guys that Cenk brought in from the Bernie campaign, the two most important, from what I could find, were Saikat Chakrabarti and Zach Exley. Saikat seems to be the philosophical core of the operation, and Zach Exley is the organizational mastermind. Zach Exley is basically an expert on Saul Alinsky-style community organizing, and both he and Saikat are tech guys. They're very experienced with social media campaigning. Now, they did a great job in 2018, but make no mistake, these guys are not content with their 2018 victory. They're playing a long game here. 2018 was just the beginning. They'll redouble their efforts in 2020, 2022, 2024, at which time I am 100% convinced that they will run somebody for president. For the 2018 elections, the Justice Democrats endorsed 79 candidates. 26 of them won their primary elections. 7 of them won in the general election and are now in Congress. Most of these people's names I can't even pronounce. Raul Grijalva, Ro Khanna, Ayan Presley, Pramila Jayapal, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Of these 7, 3 were chosen through the audition process and are, as far as I can tell, puppets of the Justice Democrats, Saikat Chakrabarti, and Cenk Uygur. These candidates are Ayan Presley, Rashida Tlaib, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Imagine if they run not 79 candidates, but 200 or 400 or 1,000. At their current rate of success, they would get 88 House seats, and if they improve their techniques, they might get more, including Senate seats. The first screenplay I ever wrote, I was 15, it was about a future in which a megalomaniac was trying to take over the US government. He was trying to do this by installing puppet politicians throughout the US Congress, giving him a majority, and in the climactic point in the movie, his puppet president is also elected. So in my screenplay, this villain effectively gains control over the US government through these politicians who are loyal to him. I never thought that this fiction that I wrote as a teenager would ever become reality. It's completely crazy, but it looks like this has actually started to happen. Cenk Uygur is no longer formally associated with the Justice Democrats or AOC's congressional team, but whether or not he still holds influence over these people is unknown. What is known is that these people are dangerous. Zach Exley is a radical left open borders guy who was once a fellow at the Open Borders Foundation, which is George Soros's organization, and he seems to be the least extreme of these guys. Cenk Uygur calls his organization the Young Turks. The Young Turks is named after a group of Turkish revolutionaries formed in 1911 who slaughtered 1.5 million people in the Armenian genocide. So we know where Cenk's influence is at. Saikat Chakrabarti is influenced by this guy, Subhas Chandra Bose. How do we know this? Because he wears this Che Guevara-style shirt with Subhas Chandra Bose's face on it in most of his videos. That seems like a pretty deliberate choice. At first, I actually thought it was his own face. I was like, why is this guy wearing a shirt with his own face on it? That's crazy narcissistic. But then I figured out it was this Subhas guy. So who is Subhas Chandra Bose? He was the violent complement to the non-violent Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, the legendary Gandhi. Whilst Gandhi was trying to expel the British from India non-violently, this guy was like, no, let's start a war and let's kill them all. Actually, it was worse than that. Much, much, much worse. Subhas called himself a socialist, but he is quoted as saying, "Our philosophy should be a synthesis between Nazism and communism." Another important thing that we need to recognize about Subhas is that he was an anti-colonialist. Now, we're not super familiar with this political perspective here in the US, but in India, anti-colonialism causes deep resentment to this day. This is explained in the documentary film 2016 Obama's America. In this film, Dinesh D'Souza explains anti-colonialism and shows how these ideas influence Barack Obama because, and this is the scary part, the United States is founded on colonialism. To the anti-colonialist, the US is an evil empire that colonized North America. The United States is the enemy and is to be fought. It's to be resisted, torn down. This is the guy that Saikat Chakrabarti, AOC's chief of staff, wears on his t-shirt, a pro-violence, anti-colonial socialist who dreamed of a Nazi communist government. This is the man behind the curtain. This is the brains behind AOC. It's definitely scarier to me that he's not a congressman, but that he is the man behind the curtain. There is no accountability for the man behind the curtain. If AOC falls from grace, he can just hire another actress. There are no term limits to being the guy behind the curtain. When I got back from CPAC 6 days ago, Saikat Chakrabarty was in the news for the first time ever. I was surprised because I'd never heard of him until I went to Washington. As it turns out, he has been flagged recently for diverting at least $1 million in campaign donations from the political action committee that he was running to shell companies that he set up. At the moment, it's unclear whether he was embezzling the money or just hiding it from FEC oversight. Either way, it looks like he's in trouble. For a guy who claims to be trying to get money and influence out of government, he doesn't seem to mind leveraging those tools himself. You may have heard something about this. What you probably haven't heard about is AOC's sinister living wage rules. So AOC announced a little while ago that she was going to cap her congressional staff's pay at $80,000 so that she could pay her bottom level staff a living wage and her interns $15 per hour. But here's the thing. AOC's living wage rule allows her staff to dodge financial disclosure laws. Under federal law, congressional employees who earn over $126,000 per year must disclose all of the outside money that they earn. Because AOC's top staff will not be making over $126,000 per year, they will not be subject to this law. I wonder who came up with this brilliant scheme, Saikat Chakrabarty. I know it wasn't the bartender. This team of guys who got AOC elected and who are now pulling the strings of her congressional seat declared at the outset that they were trying to bring integrity into government, transparency, to flush out the corruption. Well, it looks like they're trying in every way they possibly can to hide their own activities. They say that sunlight is the best disinfectant. I say it's about time we pulled the curtain all the way back on this particular wizard and all of his friends. Oh, and just remember, the next time you see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's fake. She's a fraud. She's not real. None of her tweets are actually her tweets. None of her speeches are her speeches. Her answers to questions and interviews, she was coached to give those. She's not a real congresswoman. She's an actress. All right, that's it for me. If you like this episode, hit the like button. If you want to see more like this, please subscribe. And if you hate me, you're probably Saikat Chakrabarty or Cenk Uygur, because hopefully I just tore down your evil plot for world domination. Good night.
We have so many people who can't see a fat man standing beside a thin one without coming to the conclusion the fat man got that way by taking advantage of the thin one. The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. Now,
to look at everything with. Lord knows what kind of world we're living in. This is our open mic time. Talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about Olympia, we talked about the city of Spokane, we've talked about why we need a 51st state, we've talked about what's going on federally. So if any of you have any comments, John has the mic, and speak up, please. This is Matt.
This is Matt Hawkins. This is very informative. I appreciate all the dialogue on this one. Just as a simple reminder, this is going to give us some additional ammunition that we need. I'm also on the County Republican Party steering committee or executive committee, and we are absolutely gearing up for the fall-time elections right now and trying to set the course for what we need to do in 2020. So I know that this is going to give me momentum to going out and help raise the funds that we need to ensure that we get good people in the city of Spokane. We also have an objective right now to hit the school districts, and we recognize that if we're going to make a difference in the state, we've got to hit the small, what we call the lower tiered offices if we're going to make a difference at the state level. So we're having those discussions right now. We're trying to get people lined up. If you know of anyone that you think in your community could be going for a school district position, or even any one of the city positions in any one of the local communities around here, we're all ears on that one. We have Lincoln Day coming on here in April 13th. We'd love to have you there. We've got a speaker that's going to be participating in that event, that's going to be helping to drive what we think are the young Republicans back out to the polls, so we can help to try to get some control of these elections. But give me a call or talk to any one of us, and this is motivation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And you know, Matt mentioned Lincoln Day, and it's April 13th, Davenport Grand. Speaker is Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA, and if you want tickets, you go to SpokaneGOP.com or org, and I think .com works, and you can buy your tickets there. Anyone else?
Anyone else? Okay, I'll take it over there.
Over here.
Okay, who's got it? Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about this 5G concept. It's a done deal, at least in Spokane Valley. I assume the city is in the same situation where they have allowed contracts to be let on what organizations are going to install this new 5G hardware. There is a professor emeritus at WSU who is I think he's a biotech engineer. He says this is the stupidest thing that mankind has ever done to itself. This 5G radiation that's going to be coming from your phones, the boxes are going to have to be put on poles about 200 or 300 feet throughout the area that's going to be receiving this network. They're generating energy. It's a serious health issue. The military uses this very same concept as a weapon. If you know how to play with this stuff, you can make your skin crawl. You can burn people up with this stuff. And I would really suggest that the Grassroots ask this Martin Pall is his name, I think it's P-A-L-L, if he would be willing to come and give a dissertation on it, because you know, the government says you can't sue them about this. It's in the law that allows this 5G system to get started in the United States. This Chinese lady up in Canada that just got arrested, I can't pronounce her name, but Wang or Wong or something like that. Okay. Well, she basically is the Chinese agent that is pushing this throughout Canada, the United States, and other international territories. And the Chinese built these devices, and they are so highly complex that nobody seems to know, but they suspect that the Chinese are going to get every piece of information that's going across that network. Okay, it's a spying device. So that's one aspect of it. The other would be the health issue. But I think we should at least make our citizens aware of the potential risk. So, thank you.
Thank you. More comments?
It is interesting that President Trump announced this week that the 5G thing that he's working on will not include Huawei or their equipment. So something's stirring up there.
Yeah, I wanted to tag on to what this gentleman was saying. There's a lot of I don't know, misinformation out there, so-called, I mean, 5G is just, it's radio waves, and radio waves are radio waves.
Then how could we identify the microelectromagnetic?
Microwaves, they're all radio waves. Microwave, actually, first of all, they're probably mostly not microwaves. Microwaves are a particular frequency band. And a lot of the 5G stuff actually makes it into the millimeter wave category, which actually, generally speaking, makes it safer than microwaves or even, say, the lower frequency stuff that we used to use, like, say, 900 megahertz, or even, a lot of the ham radio stuff is in the kilohertz. And they pump it out at, they measure it in sometimes hundreds of watts. It's most of the stuff that I see out there, the people who are putting it out don't know anything about radio waves, is really all I want to say about that. And if you talk to somebody who does, if there's anybody in here who's maybe a ham radio operator, they could tell you a lot more about it than even I could. The other thing that I'd like to say is, even say regarding Huawei, there's been a lot of false information that's been put out about these routers and LTE equipment and stuff like that because there's been a lot of jockeying over trade agreements, and a lot of this misinformation is to I'm trying to think of how to describe it, but
stir the mud.
Well, yeah, exactly. Stir the mud up so that things don't go as smoothly as maybe they could.
I just had, I've had a tremendous internet problem at my house where my computers were infected by Microsoft software that demanded that the security the security things all had to change, and I wound up getting my ISP, my internet service provider. We have a tower on our property, and Scott came out and was looking at our equipment, and he was telling me that we were talking about this 5G stuff, and I didn't get anything in great detail, but he's like, just like Julian's saying, he says it's just another radio frequency. He says that's not the problem. He says there's nothing wrong with these routers. The problem is that we got Microsoft with this Windows 10. He says if there's anything to be concerned about, it's that. And I've just been installing this stuff on all of my equipment, and I cannot believe how psychologically numbing it is to see how Microsoft has just, I mean, it brings up all the preferences so that you can turn things off, but it's all set up so that you're totally connected. And everything you're doing, they get. And if you're just a normal person who thinks, oh, everything's fine, they're just going to say, great, accept it, accept it, accept it, and it's out there. And that's what he was telling me was a big risk. And he's not one of us, I will tell you that straight up. He doesn't get into any of this kind of stuff, but he's really concerned about where Windows 10 has arrived as of this year with all the updates. Anyway, anything else? Different topic maybe?
Yeah, I've got a different topic.
Good.
Our state attorney general has been noted as the biggest activist attorney general in our state's history. There's other names for him too. But Ferguson has gone after one particular individual with a vengeance, and that man is named Tim Eyman. We brought up his name before, and what Bob Ferguson wanted to do was to expunge Tim Eyman's influence in the state of Washington. Now, Mike Fagan just left, and I'm not certain what the estimated amount of taxpayer savings that
it's in the billions.
It's in the billions that he saved the taxpayers.
If you go to voterswantmorechoices.com, you can see that amount.
And that's it. And Mike Fagan and Tim Eyman and Jack Fagan are the core people of Voters Want More Choices. Well, anyway, Bob Ferguson went after Tim Eyman and tried to arrest him, find him or sued him for an incredible amount of money. It bankrupted Tim. He lost his house and several other things. But Tim Eyman stood up in court and did his court case pro se. That means he did it without a lawyer because no lawyer wanted to step up under the pressure of Bob Ferguson. In fact, they were scared because of the retribution Bob Ferguson may have. And Tim Eyman won his case without an attorney, and the woman prosecuted him was from Bob Ferguson's office. And at the final judgment of the judge, she stormed out of there, and apparently she had a trail of profanities. And then they say she struck a janitor on the way out. Yeah, I don't know if she pushed him down the stairs, but anyway, she was fired. So we've got another little niche of Washington State's history that just happened right then. And that is a big win by a strong-hearted individual that actually has a heart for the people.
Yeah, Tim just works tirelessly.
You can't find anybody like him.
Yeah, no, it's pretty incredible what he's done. So voters want more choices.
So
if you want
anyway,
to
the petitions will be out for $30 tabs, and just like Cecily,
no, it's already done.
It says all right. Okay, good.
It'll be on the ballot in November.
And the thing about this is what I like. It takes away by money.
it takes away an incredible niche and power of the government to take your money and use it against you. And that's what I really like.
Well, that's nice, but you saw tonight the number of taxes that this legislature is looking to impose upon all the residents in Washington. They just keep raising them, raising them, raising them, raising them. It's pretty incredible. So we swat them down and they bring them up, and that's why we need to get out from under the finger of Olympia.
We need a 3D money printing machine.
Ah.
Gary, did you have a comment?
Yes. This last video on AOC reminded me of something I saw on Facebook in the last few days, to which I contributed, and it was about the history of a young Lenin. I'm talking college age, and he was a democratic socialist originally. We're talking the Lenin that started the revolution in Russia, or at least brought it to fruition. And one of the things I responded on that was, in this country, where a lot of the things that we saw tonight that were listed, all going back to the underlying philosophy, started with John Dewey, and in 1933 he was one of the most notorious signatories of the original Humanist Manifesto, which, if you read it and understand the implications of it, you'll see it in everything up there. It does away with God completely, and it refers to it as a religion. They didn't do that later in the second Humanist Manifesto, but originally they said it was a atheistic religion. And you take the basis of that and take it through all of the subjects: ecology, abortion. You can't have abortion if you believe that God created mankind. It just, you can't do it. When I walked, the last precincts I walked were in Spokane City, if Mike's still here. And one of the things, I think back to when I started walking precincts when I was 15 years old. I'm in my 70s now, and I'm not able to walk nearly as well as I did when I was younger. But one of the things that I've seen over the years is the blank looks going into say a middle-class neighborhood. They're knocking on the door. They do not have the ability to comprehend as well as they did when they were younger. But I have to give that a qualification. I've been communicating with my graduating class from high school of 65, and it is amazing how many of them now are identifying as socialists. And so I go back again. It came in the 1930s at Columbia University School of Education, when John Dewey and about 3 or 4 of his cohorts started what has been a major change in public education from the university schools of education on down, that became the foundation for every public school of education, and that has brought the belief system that we have now in this country.
Thank you, Gary. So our hope in this country is to have the people that don't have college educations rise up and vote correctly, because otherwise we're pretty well screwed. It's not good. Anybody else? I think Laura has something.
Well, I'd like to know, I was reading some Tim Eyman's email, and he said something like there's an initiative out there to say, give them nothing. There's supposed to be some petitions that we can sign for a referendum to give our state attorney general, governor, and other public officials who want a big pay raise, not to give them any pay raise. For
you're right. Yeah.
So are there petitions out there for that?
I believe if you go to the website, you can download them. I haven't seen any circulating in this area.
And this is something that's totally off the subject. I picked up some forms today for whoever wishes to participate in the Bloomsday. That's first Sunday of May. I have a few forms for anybody who wants to apply.
So if you guys want to go Bloomsday in, she's got forms and you don't have to go get them. Anybody else? Okay. Hey, I just want a really quick, you know, because I think you've all recognized that we're bouncing around here as far as when do we meet? Do we meet on Tuesday? Do we meet on Wednesday? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And so our choices really are Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. How many like Monday? Second Monday of the month. Okay. How many people like Tuesday? Okay. And how many people like Thursday? Thursday's okay too. Okay, so I think what we're going to just do is say it's going to be second Tuesday of the month, and we're going to stop changing it around. I believe this place can accommodate us, and we'll just, you know, get going back on track, because we sure got thrown off kilter this summer, didn't we? It was pretty bad. So thanks so much, all of you.